All right, welcome back to the Death Lineup. We wanted to be back after more games during the Lakers series, but schedule reasons didn't allow us to do that. And unfortunately, the Warriors lost to the Lakers. So this is your end of the season podcast. If the Warriors had made it to the Western Conference Finals, I think we would have been able to come back for most of those games, but didn't happen. So now we're here to talk about what's going on with the team. And I guess we kind of have to start with Bob Myers, Bry. Anthony Slater and Shams posted on The Athletic. I'll just read from it, and I'm going to get your immediate response here. So they wrote, this is actually the two lead paragraphs of the story. Golden State Warriors and president of basketball operations Bob Myers have had no substantial contract extension talks in months, and the sides are bracing for the likelihood that Myers could walk away from the franchise, league sources told The Athletic. His contract is up on June 30th, so that is currently about 5.5 weeks, a little, maybe just a little bit less than 6 weeks away. Both sides exchanged offers and counter offers several months ago, and there has since been no traction on a new deal. League sources say the Warriors have not yet presented an offer that has blown Myers away, but there's also a growing sense that an ever-competitive market offer near the top of the executive food chain may not keep Myers with the franchise that he joined in April of 2011 as an assistant general manager before his promotion to GM in April of 2012. Okay. This was posted from what we saw in a tweet, like maybe even at the time that the team was having like some sort of function. So that was probably awkward, but it sounds like Bob Myers may not be running the Warriors anymore. What is your immediate thought after reading that and hearing that?
I don't know. It's not a great thing to read when you know how much he's done for this franchise. I feel like I think one of the guys, I think it was Anthony Slater, mentioned it on the podcast that, you know, Bob Myers re-signing or coming back would almost feel like what Iguodala did this past year. It was kind of just like a for Steph signing. And Iguodala was probably ready to hang it up after that championship, but came back for Steph. I feel like that would be how Bob Myers comes back too. And I mean, it doesn't say it doesn't say, that he's out yet. It just says that talks aren't totally progressing.
Yeah, and they still have, like I said, 5.5 weeks or whatever. And if
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if you remember this, but Bob Myers was the assistant general manager to who?
Was it Travis Schlenk?
Jerry West.
Oh, Jerry West.
Jerry West was running the team, and he came in under Jerry. And then at some point, he replaced Jerry, and Jerry was a consultant. And then Jerry went to the Clippers to do something similar,
I
I
do the
believe.
same progression. Keep following Jerry. What if I know Bob's got a lot going on. Like I feel like, haven't we heard like Disney something with him too? Like
There's lots of rumors,
media.
and I'm sure some of them are being pitched by whoever's doing his PR.
I'm just wondering, like, how Tom Brady kind of got that contract. He's not Bob Myers, no Tom Brady, but Tom Brady kind of got that TV contract. That's like, okay, when you retire, same with Draymond. When you retire, like this is here for you. Like, I'm wondering if there's a chance that he does, like, because the story is right that Bob Myers doesn't want to be the guy who basically has to trade all of his friends. Like, he doesn't want to be the guy who's like, okay, Klay Thompson, like, I've known you for X amount of years. The gig is up, man. You don't got it anymore. Sayonara. Like, he doesn't want to do that because these guys are like his friends. And so I'm wondering, like, can he sign a 1-year contract? We don't know GM salaries. I don't think we know the years on them. It's like one of the I don't know, sports contracts we can't actually see. But I'm wondering, like, can you do like a 1-year deal? Just like the Iguodala, like this is legit the last dance. 1-year deal. And he has stuff lined up after, kind of like the Tom Brady Draymond Green media deal. Like he's able to figure out something where he's like has something guaranteed for him somewhere else after. He's just doing this for Steph.
I don't think you can do what he does in his job and do it solely for So there has to be selfishness going on in there. He's not one of 5 players on the court. He is one of a handful of people who decide what's going to happen, right? He only has one boss, and that's the big boss. So I would be surprised if he signed on for one more year. The only thing that makes sense to me and why this holdout is kind of what it is to just juice up his own price. And, we have this thing, which is very similar to how he was brought in, which is Mike Dunleavy is the assistant or whatever he is, whatever his title is. But Bob Myers and Mike are at this draft stuff. They're going to be involved. Mike is you probably don't even remember Mike as a player.
No, but I know his name and I've seen clips, but no, I didn't watch him growing up.
But Mike would have been on the teams right before We Believe. And when the Warriors drafted him, he was the 3rd pick in the draft behind Yao Ming and Jason Williams, the Jason Williams from Duke, who's now on TV. It was a 2-player draft, and the Warriors got the 3rd pick. This is just what always happened for the Warriors. And Dunleavy was not a great player. He was a solid player, but if the way that the fans treated him because he was not Yao Ming was really bad. And I'm actually kind of surprised that this is the franchise that he came back to because of that, because he was just blamed for everything. I remember there was one game you guys did not come to this game. You guys were still babies, but me and your mom went, and we had these like backstage passes to whatever the club was or whatever the little bar was. And Uncle Cliff Robinson was on this team. So this is probably around 2005 timeframe is my guess. I just remember Uncle Cliff buying drinks for people in the bar. And then I remember Mike Dunleavy sitting at a table kind of in the back. There's, some, I don't know if it was his girlfriend or his wife and friends, but there was like 2 or 3 women next to him. And he just looked like the most unhappy human in this whole place. He's like, do I really have to be here? That was kind of the thought that I had. So he's not, he was like really blamed for not being great and not taking the Warriors to the next level. So it's just surprising to me that he's the guy that's going to replace Bob Myers because of who he was. And, Bob Myers is I think he has a friendly relationship with this fan base. The second he leaves,
I'm off. I'm out.
And the second Mike Dunleavy comes in and makes a decision, he's going to get the blame that Bob Myers will never get. So it's a really interesting thing. And Sean Livingston is involved in some way. And Sean Livingston's a very popular ex-player.
The Lake Up kids.
And then there's the Lake Up kids coming up. And then there's Joe. Will Joe have even more influence without Bob there? Will he overpower Mike Dunleavy like Mike Dunleavy was overpowered by power players? But that's kind of how I feel, right? Is Mike Dunleavy here to basically allow Lake Up to have more power because he's,
you think
somebody that he could influence?
You think the way he played on a court is like a direct comparison to how he acts off it? Hey, a good example is me in 2K, man. I'm getting buckets, 30 points per game in 2K, and on real life, I won't shoot the damn ball.
I know. Me and JJ, our team beat your team last weekend.
Oh wow! But what I will like, okay, a little bit of good old revisionist history, right? Like, as much as Bob Myers gets praise, he's a charismatic individual, former NBA agent, I believe, and that's but like 80 or 90% of his success is because of a guy he didn't draft.
Of 3, wait,
I thought
3 guys he didn't draft, right?
I thought he drafted Clay. I thought
did he draft?
I don't think he drafted Steph.
He wasn't even here when Steph was drafted.
Yeah. So my point is, like, yeah, charismatic guy, former NBA agent, but like none of this happens without the guy you didn't draft. So like, it's kind of like going into, this is not a good example because I've never been in a fight, but I was going to say going into a fight with like the big jack guy, like you feel more confident. That's how like going into free agency negotiations are when you have Steph Curry under contract. You feel a little more confident about the team you got, that you can get some players. So Bob Myers is great, man, but as long as I have 30, I feel like I'm pretty the next GM is going to have an easier job.
So I actually got this wrong. It's possible Jerry West was not running the team at that point. Jerry West may have been a consultant at the time, but
what's the Travis Schlenk connection? Because TK was saying he was on here. I wasn't paying attention to front office stuff back then, so I forget how he was involved because he went to Atlanta to be the GM and then got replaced by nepotism.
I think he was Myers' assistant.
Okay,
is what it was. Let's see. Yeah, he was assistant general manager with the Warriors, having joined them in 2004. So he's been with the team for a long time. He was the video scout of the team. He also worked. No, Travis.
Oh, okay.
He also worked as video coordinator for the Heat.
Yeah, bring him back.
Before then, and then he ran
needs a job.
Basketball operations in Georgia. So okay, so I say all of that to say this, which is, if you are Bob Myers and you feel like you have some leverage, you have outside opportunities, this is a hard job. You're at the end of Steph's reign here. Steph has more years behind him than he has looking forward as far as his basketball career is going. Steph had a great year. Steph's probably going to have a great year next year.
Yeah.
Right?
Like he just doesn't look like he's slowing down. The only thing that can slow him down is injuries.
Right. And he's had injuries in the past, but he's gonna play until the wheels fall off. And if he has to change his game, then maybe he plays a little bit more off ball with and not the man at some point later in his career in his upper 30s or whatever. So if you're Bob Myers, your leverage is, I have all of these other things to do. Running this organization with all of these egos and superstars and such is not easy. And so, if someone else can do it, then that's fine. And I would say probably his number one job is managing owner expectations, right? You have an owner who believes that he is light years ahead of these other organizations. And so you kind of have to know when to agree and disagree and try and do the things that the owner wants, and then tell the owner, hey, this is not very smart. Like, we probably shouldn't do this, right? That is probably his most important job. And it is also very important for him to have the relationships that you had. I don't know if he would say that they're friends necessarily, but they are people, they are colleagues who he is very close to, and he will have to make some hard decisions. Klay Thompson is not going to be signed for $40 million again. Like, it's just not happening. They have a really tough decision on Draymond as well, that you kind of hope that they decide now when Bob is there versus when he's not there. But maybe it's easier for Mike Dunleavy to come in and go, okay, I am not as close to these guys, and I can make this decision with a better mindset and less of a bias. Who knows what that is? But I would say Bob is in a great spot. Joe Lacob, and this is owner stuff, like if Joe Lacob believes that he doesn't have to pay top dollar for this GM because he has to pay so much money in luxury tax for his own team, and then he's going to have to do this dance with Kerr after next year, then maybe it is the GM who kind of takes it, and maybe he does believe in the tree of success for the Warriors, which is they've built this team. Bob is at the top, and then he's got his lieutenants, and everyone is sort of working together. Maybe he believes that they won't skip a beat. That is his decision. That is his money. It is his job as an owner to make that decision. And you just hope that there's no hard feelings. But if you're Bob and you believe that you're doing a great job, and you believe that you're valuable, then you test those waters and see what's out there. What if he does have a an offer from another team that will make him happier.
Yeah,
That's that's the thing, and Lacob has to be able to walk away if he believes that is best for the team.
yeah. I think the Clippers guy GM is looking at like something in Washington too. So that just continues to line it up for Bobby Boy. But yeah, like you said, managing egos from the player side and from the owner side. I don't know. I'm high on Mike Dunleavy's ability to do that. What better to consult a player than a former player? They get it, right? I don't want Lacob's kid, little rich boy growing up, nepotism job, to be the one who's trying to make players feel better. Rather
Okay,
have
but
Mike
you've
Dunleavy.
watched Succession, right? You've watched the first couple seasons of Succession. I'm only at the end of season 1, so I don't know, but I know the story, and I cover wrestling, so I cover the McMahons as well,
This is
right?
gonna be a terrible comparison because these people are just bad people.
No,
Like
but
I
I'm
hope the
saying
Lacobs aren't that.
no. I don't think that they are. If I highly doubt that they are. But the kind of the hierarchy, because you're saying nepotism, and you believe by saying that neither of the sons would have that job without Joe being their dad. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know their work. I've never met them. It sounds like they're pretty smart dudes in general, and they work hard. But is it do you the thing about the nepotism thing is, do you trust the dad to treat them as his equal? That is the hard part, right? That is the hard part in cases like this. If you want your sons to be a part of this operation, can you manage them like employees rather than like your children?
Yeah, I have no clue. I don't know the Lacobs like that. If they're anything like the Roys, no. So yeah,
All
we
right.
will see.
All right. Do you have a prediction?
Um, it just doesn't feel right that if you talk about the core five is really Steph, Clay, Dre, Steve Kerr, Bob Myers. That's like been the same group of people since this thing whole started. It doesn't feel right that the GM's the first one out, you know? So I don't think he should I don't
But
think he should go.
if one of the five had to leave, which one of the five would you want to leave?
If I
It's
just had to pick
probably
one right
Myers.
now,
It's probably Myers, right?
I'd trade Clay. Nick. But yeah. It's probably if you get nothing in return, which one do I think should leave? Yeah, Bob Myers.
It's probably Myers. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit because I want to talk about this the end of the season, which we saw last Friday. We were in Tucson at O'Malley's, and we watched a very tired, I would say, Warriors team lose to the Lakers. It wasn't really that close of a game, and it got out of control in the second half. But what were your major takeaways from that game? And I'll start with one, and then we'll just to get the conversation going. But the one takeaway, and you kind of mentioned it, is Clay. People were expecting Clay to have a big game, and I think he had one good game in the entire series, but no like Clay games like expected. And I'm actually he's a confident guy, but I wonder how much of it is being confident for the sake of being confident and being confident because he truly believes it. Because he was open. he had to take some hard shots because he loves taking hard shots, but they kind of disrespected him in the way that they guarded the Warriors. And in that series against Sacramento, he made sure to say, hey, if you're going to guard Steph like that, that just means I'm going to be open. So I embrace that. The Lakers did the same thing, and he did not come through. And so does that mean that Clay is washed? Does that mean that Clay just had a bad series? He mentioned mental fatigue, but I think that is the one. Like there's a bunch of things that they're going to talk about. Jordan Poole, obviously, we'll get to Jordan Poole. Jonathan Kuminga not playing, but Clay, I think, is just as important as any one of them when it comes to what the heck happened there. Like what does anyone have the answer to that question?
I don't have the answer to that question. Clay is on the court to be the one to punish teams for doubling Steph, and he didn't. Um, yeah, that was pretty frustrating to watch. I was looking at Clay's numbers, and he's for the playoffs, 38.8% from the field, 36.8 from three. So he shot the three ball like relatively well, but yeah, from the field he was atrocious. Um, yeah, I'm man, I tried to trade this guy at the trade deadline for Siakam. like I'm sentimental and you can't do it without Clay, but he's had two major injuries. I can't totally blame him for falling off. But yeah, I don't think um like there's got to be things that I think are said to him that I don't think he will accept, which is one, I think he needs to come off the bench. Two, I think he cannot be shooting. Let me check the numbers. Uh, he cannot be shooting 16.8 shots a game, the second most on the team. Um, I just don't think that he is that type of player, and nor do I believe that he is the type of player anymore that you can't say that to, that you can't say, hey, don't take as many shots, because I don't know. I feel like he's in that decline denial, and I don't want to. He had a good season. He actually had a really good season, which is kind of the annoying part of it all, which is I doubted him, and then he started to prove me wrong, and then he actually ended up with the best couple months of his career when I tried to trade him. So I just this that's why the playoffs are, players get marked or deemed as a playoff worthy player, and that kind of changes the trajectory of their career. If you're labeled as a guy who shows up in the playoffs, you're way more valued. And I thought Clay was, one of the people that people joke about sending to Shanghai, send to China, to play in that league when you don't show up in the playoffs. So,
okay, but here's my question, based off what you just said. What else is he there to do if you don't want him shooting?
I want him shooting. I just think I want him shooting better shots, and I don't think you can convince Klay Thompson not to take leaners.
But he takes shots he believes they need to A, swing the momentum, or B, sort of late in the clock, hard two kind of shots. I would love to see his numbers on those because I don't imagine that they're very good. But you talk about somebody who plays with confidence. He loses his confidence, which may have happened in this playoffs, and he's probably a completely different player. I don't like. I would agree with you in some senses of we don't need the heat check. 20 seconds left on the shot clock. Ones, that's just being a smart basketball player. But he's got that fire and that belief that tells him that he can make those. Those shots in the Lakers series, though, he's got to shoot those. If he starts passing those shots up, you're you're gun shy now. And so that's an interesting thing. And how does someone like Clay age as an older player? How does he extend his career if he's not the main? He's always been the secondary focal point on this Warriors team. Except for when KD was there. But if you ask Clay, he's like, oh, I'm still doing whatever I always do. So that is a conversation to have. He believes that it is mental fatigue, at least according to the quotes that we've heard. He believes it's mental fatigue. He believes it's...
What does mental fatigue mean? I'm mentally tired, mentally exhausted, but from what?
The grind, the pain, possibly. I mean, he's probably hurting, right? He's coming back from had his ACL and his Achilles completely redone. So there's a lot of stuff in the grind aspect, and let's the whole chaos from the beginning of the season, defending the title, and then having the Jordan Poole and Draymond punch. I'm sure there were more people asking those guys negative questions about the season than they would have had if that punch didn't happen. So I can see that part of it too. Like he's making paper airplanes in the in the interviews to kind of take his mind off of some of the questions, and he's looking at stat sheets, and it's how he's always done it. But it's much easier when you're the upstart team who people want you to win. They're happy for your success. And then when it's the death lineup team, you're kind of rebellious. You're like, what? People don't want us to win? Well, we're going to show you. We're going to go out and win 65 games. And then we're going to run through LeBron and sweep those guys. So then last year you win it and you're just like, wow, we proved him again. And now the people hate us again. And so there's lots of ups and downs emotionally, I'm sure. I guess I just worry about he seems like a guy who he needs to know that you really love him. and
You talking about Jordan or Clay?
Clay, like
both of them.
He needs to, he needs that. He needs to know that his teammates believe in him, I think. So hopefully they can figure it out. He believes also that he didn't come into shape, and we knew that, and that's why he didn't play in the beginnings. That is sort of an unanswerable question. That could have something to do about his mental mindset as well. But he got through the season, so I never understood that, and hopefully he will figure out whatever he needs to figure out. But that's my first takeaway. So what do you have based on what we saw in that 6-game series?
I think some of my major summaries from that series is what we've been saying all year, is that the Warriors, they just weren't taking things seriously. I thought the Lakers were super advantageous with their position, and I think they executed it perfectly. The Warriors messed around in game 6, didn't take it seriously. It took Steph a speech for them to go and win game 7. But that same night of game 6 against the Kings, that same night, the Lakers beat Memphis to win the series, and get X amount of days of rest up until game 1. We said it on this podcast that game 1 was the one for the Lakers to probably get because the Warriors were tired from playing 2 days before. So I don't think it's a hot take to say that if the Warriors took care of business in game 6 against Sac, like this series might have been different. I think it's not a hot take to say that if Lonnie Walker doesn't turn into 1996 Michael Jordan for 12 minutes in the fourth quarter, that this might have been a different series. But there's no woulda, coulda, shoulda for me, but it is like I don't want to give up on this group. Like I don't think they got waxed. I don't think, I think that there's probably a few changes you can make and you're back in the mix again next year. So yeah, I just think the Lakers were way more almost vet savvy than the Warriors were, which is pretty odd. That's just how good LeBron is, not just his ability on the court, but just stuff like that. Like I'm sure he's like, guys, like this is one we can get, like amping them up to be the away team that steals game 1 against the Warriors, and he did it against Memphis. And I bet you he tried to do it against Denver too, because that would have been a big one to get for them. But I think Denver was just so well rested, and they're actually like really good. But the Lakers kind of almost did it. But yeah, I think the Lakers super advantageous. I think the Warriors, just that story from the entire season, just kind of felt like they were not totally serious about it.
The Lakers did a good job exposing the Warriors' weaknesses, and they did it all season long, right? They would just lay back on certain guys. You saw that kind of that triangle defense that they would play against Steph, which meant that you needed guys to shoot. And, Draymond, he's not a threat. Clay was missing. So now it's really down to one guy because Jordan Poole had such a terrible series. So it's down to one guy. Moses Moody going to make a couple surprise threes, but they don't care. And the Warriors don't go to him enough because they don't believe that is the right play. They don't believe that, they're not guarding Moses, let's get Moses looks. They're like, no, we're just going to run our offense. So there is an interesting thing that I was saying after that Lonnie Walker game, which was the Warriors would never have signed Lonnie Walker. They would have looked at him and said, there's no way he fits into what we do. And he's not a good enough defensive player. He doesn't fit in the flow. He's not a good passer. So they'd been way off him. You heard Tim Kawakami say the same thing about Dennis Schroeder on the last plus minus. The problem, though, is the Warriors have all these guys that fit in this system, and yet nobody wanted to take a shot. Nobody wanted to be the guy to make a bucket. And for as much as we love GP2, passing up layups, right? Because he doesn't want to get blocked, doesn't want to have to go to the free throw line. Draymond passing up layups because he doesn't want to get blocked. He doesn't want to go to the free throw line, even though I feel like Draymond shot the free throw really, really well during these playoffs. You can name a bunch of other guys. Dante DiVincenzo. He's not going into that lane unless he feels like he has a chance to finish. Doesn't want to get blocked. So who's the guy that's going to be there to take that shot? Well, it's supposed to be Jordan Poole. He's willing to take it. He's just not always going to make the right play. So one of the other takeaways is the Warriors need players who may not fit the template of what Myers and Kerr believe to be a true Warrior. They need someone who is not afraid to shoot a big shot. They need a Jordan Clarkson type who's just like almost irresponsibly confident, because that person, J.R. Smith with the Cavs, that person will shoot you out of some games, but also at the same time, when everyone else is afraid to shoot, that guy will not be afraid to shoot, and he'll be able to get a big bucket.
Literally Jordan Poole before he got punched in the face. That's who I comped Jordan Poole to when he was coming up. I was like, this guy actually is like Jordan Clarkson who could pass.
He was also the target of our criticism during the finals last year. So, with the whole playoffs, we were saying this dude needs to be tougher. He needs to attack. He can't be scared to go in the middle. Like, we were saying all of those things. So when they won the title, maybe our belief was that maybe he did do more of that than we gave him credit for. But I very much remember us making him the target of our criticism when it came to being tough, and they need playoff tough guys, which, because of who they are, you would think that, they have JaMychal Green is not that guy. As much as we wanted him to be, he's not that guy. And now Kerr gave him a shot. Kerr did that funky lineup where he started JaMychal Green, and he was just like, hey, just go in the corner and shoot threes, which is the same thing that Kuminga gets chastised for, even though Kuminga shoots him, at 37%. So to me, that's kind of unfair because you bench a guy and then you let the other guy who is not as impressive throughout the whole season, you let that guy do the same thing you chastise the other guy for. So it's a little bit of a double standard. And really, my question about why Kuminga did not get one single shot has not been answered yet. Not by any of these podcasts, not by any of these beat writers. You don't go into a series and not at least explore your most athletic guy in a team of big athletic guys as your two best players. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But I mean, it'd be nice to have a guy like, I guess, Lonnie Walker in that position. I mean, he hasn't done anything since, and I doubt he'll do anything going forward, though. I genuinely think it was this once in a lifetime experience, this crazy moment that will never be replicated again.
He played well in Game 6 as well.
He played okay in Game 6. I feel like he did hit like a couple nice shots, but the Warriors' ego was deflated. They were done by the time I felt like he started to spark up. But yeah, they just need a lot of things entering this offseason. They need what Jordan Poole is supposed to be. They need that guy, a creator, a shot creator for when Steph sits, who's reliable to get you a bucket. They need a guy like that, and that's what Jordan's supposed to be. And they need more interior help, like what Wiseman was supposed to be. Like, they were hoping he'd be like a JaVale McGee type. That we said that on the podcast too. They need that guy.
No, well, you remember when I was saying that, you were like,
yeah, but then I remember I caved.
No. I'm not saying that you said anything wrong, but it just shows you how far we went with what Wiseman was supposed to be. Because you're like, he's supposed to be a foundational piece, and you want him to just rim run. And I'm like, at least he'll be able to play, because Kerr doesn't let him play. To tell him to just do one thing, rim run, and run a pick and roll with Steph, crash the basket. Run a pick and roll and Steph, flash out, and then get out of the way and let Steph cook. Don't clog the paint because that doesn't work with Steph. Those are the things that we were like, if he can do those things, at least he'll get on the court and maybe he can do something. And he couldn't even do those things. So that is how far we relented with who we expected Wiseman to be. And now he's going to go, so we'll see if he can do that elsewhere. But he didn't, let's just say that he didn't kick ass in Detroit when he was given the opportunity. Right. And that's probably not the best fit for him because they already have two other young bigs.
It's a terrible fit for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a little worried entering this offseason because, they're kind of messed up with this money situation. Is Joe Lacob willing to pay that tax bill? Because if he's not, then you literally just have to almost not cut, but get rid of someone and not really get anything in return in terms of
you probably
present value.
Get rid of two.
Man,
did you read the Tim Kawakami and Danny LaRue piece?
I haven't yet.
They basically said, if you're talking about getting under the these different tax aprons, like it's not only just one guy, you probably have to get rid of two guys. So
that's crazy, man. That's such a gross.
But I don't think that Joe Lacob is that guy, right? He's not going to be like, hey, I gave you guys one, and now we're going to restructure. He wants to win every year, and he knows that you can't. He saw in 2021 when you tried to roll Steph and Draymond out there with randos. That's about as far as they got. Was 500, a little bit over 500 record. They had to close strong to actually make the play-in, and then they lost in the two play-in games. That is what you get if you have just Steph and Draymond, or just Steph and Clay, or just Steph and Wiggins. They do have to figure out, maybe it's you either have to pick, is it Jordan or is it Draymond? You may have to make that decision, just to make sense. So I don't think that they're going to bring this whole team back, though. I just can't see that Lacob's going to go, okay, we're going to pay even more tax or just as much tax as we did last year, and we're going to bring back this funky team. And some of this, right? Now, we don't blame Steve Kerr in most cases. Some of this is the way that they handled that Jordan Poole situation. Was it a decision of whether you had to worry about Draymond's feelings? And if you back Jordan and you punish Draymond and you suspended him for 5 games, then you lose him for the whole season? Because you heard Kerr say, we're not a contender without Draymond. So they fully believe that Draymond is a much more valuable player than Jordan is. But in doing that, maybe you lost Jordan.
I think you did. I don't see him wanting to return to this team, except for the fact that, I was telling someone during the playoffs, I was like, if you are Jordan Poole, like if you value like your personal brand and like making as much money as you can, I think you stay with Golden State, because this guy who's maybe a top 100 player in the NBA was top 10 in jersey sales. And that's just because he's playing with Steph on the Golden State Warriors and he's got a little spunk to his game. But if you value your mental health and just like being happy when you wake up, like go to Orlando, go to San Antonio. But yeah, I don't see, like, the more and more I think about it, like the more and more like I get worried about how hard it is going to be to replace that Jordan Poole spot, because I think that is an important position that he plays, not position, but role, being a creator with Steph off the court. Like, I don't trust Wiggins right now to be that guy, even though he was kind of supposed to be a little bit of that guy. I obviously don't trust Clay, and it's just Jordan. So I think it's going to be extremely hard to replace that spot. But I just don't see a world where like he like really wants to, work this out and come back. And I guess it's not totally his decision, but hell, player power is at its peak. He could request out, and I'm sure they did give it to him. So
well, he could request out, but the Warriors have shown that they will take it to the 12th hour to create their leverage, which is the D'Angelo Russell, Andrew Wiggins scenario, right? they waited until the end of the trade deadline to get that trade done, because if they had done it sooner, they wouldn't have gotten everything that they wanted. So Jordan, if he does want out, it's not going to happen on his time. It's going to happen on the time of the best trade opportunity for the Warriors. Unfortunately for Jordan, he just had a bad playoffs. I would not consider his season overall bad. I think he had moments when he was able to start. I think he played pretty well. That there were just moments in certain games where he was going for his a little bit too much, and it cost them. And you saw how some of those guys reacted to it. So you can tell he's not close to those guys. He's not he's probably not hanging out with those guys, and he's way younger than those guys at the same time. But you know, I really wish Andre didn't get hurt, and Andre could have been a little bit more of a focal point, because there's so much you can do. There's only so much you can do when you're on the sidelines, but when you're on the court and there's that chemistry and there's that brotherhood, I think he could have helped mend some of this stuff. But man, that dude gave up his whole retirement year to try and reconnect those guys, this team.
What a waste. So
kudos to Andre, right? Like, that's the true team player right there, is to come back with Steph and try and do something and try and get them back, into the championship. But it just didn't work out. And a lot of times when you do stuff like that, it doesn't work out. That's a great story. That's the storybook ending, and it almost never happens that way. So Andre knew that as well. All right, so we're going to talk about this stuff all season long, all off season long. We'll talk more Jordan next time, because I think he's going to be the focal point of this offseason until he isn't. But we're also going to have to talk about Draymond, because he's got an option. And I don't listen to his podcast, so I don't know if he's leaned any which way with what he wants to do. But that's going to be another thing we talk about. And, the great thing about Steph is he's the constant. You don't really have to worry about him. Until you do. Maybe there is going to be a point where, Steph is like, okay, guys, this is going to change here. But right now, he's the constant. So we have one more segment, and we're going to do this for the rest of the until the draft. And I just decided to call it Bry's Fits. Who is going to be available possibly around where the Warriors pick at number 19? And who is going to fit with what they need? Now, I'm not sure there's a young player who can fit, because we saw this entire season what happened to all of the young players. Kuminga, Moody, their minutes got yanked around. Wiseman, so much so that they traded him. PBJ, did PBJ even play 35 games? I don't even know how many games he played, but for a team that is old and had a lot of tread on their tires, Steve Kerr certainly did not trust the young players in any way, and probably couldn't have trusted them based on some of the stuff that they did. But we have a few weeks until the draft, and your first fit for where the Warriors are going to draft is Chris Murray, twin brother of Sacramento Kings excellent rookie Keegan Murray.
Yeah. You talk about, the Warriors are probably not going to draft another teenager, because how we've seen them treat Kuminga and Moody in their first year, how we've seen them treat Wiseman, how we've seen them treat Patrick Weldon Jr. and Ryan Rollins in their first year. All those guys spent a lot of time in Santa Cruz. I don't think they can afford to draft another guy who they expect to be in Santa Cruz. The reasoning for Chris Murray is he's like kind of the opposite of that. He's going to be like 23 when he plays his first game. He is older and he is ready to contribute right now. He's a guy that, I bet the Warriors probably could have used in this playoff run, a guy who can hit a wide open three confidently. He, and another point for Chris is, how many twins can you think of that, like, I feel like twins are usually selected within a couple picks of each other. There's not really a big talent gap between twins.
The ones that I can remember
entering the league.
The ones that I can remember are the Morris twins,
Morris, Lopez,
the
and then this
Lopez
year
twins,
Thompson twins.
and the Thompson twins, yeah, for this year. Well, you talk, and I'll see where the Morris twins are drafted.
They were like right after each other. So my point is that, I think that there is a gap between Chris and Keegan, because I think Keegan has some on-ball creation that I don't think Chris has. But in terms of like shooting, I can't imagine it's that far off. In terms of defense, I can't imagine it's that far off. I'm sure they're similar athletes. I just think it's more of the on-ball stuff. Chris didn't get as much of an opportunity to shine at Iowa when Keegan was there. Keegan did a lot of the on-ball stuff. So Chris was kind of getting like a backup role. Keegan goes to the Kings. Chris gets that opportunity to shine, and he is averaging 20.2 points per game, 33.5% from three, which isn't great, but it was on high volume, 6.8 attempts, 7.9 rebounds per game, 1.2 blocks per game. I think that this isn't a high ceiling swing. This is like a high floor swing. A guy on his first year of his rookie contract, I can't remember the number that's at, but is that below a vet minimum or is that above a vet minimum for that first year of the rookie contract? I guess that's not the most important thing, but I think it is important to have that like a low number for a guy who's going to contribute.
That helps their salary thing. Like the decision that they're going to have to make and where they then have to cut more is like when Kuminga, they're gonna have
because rookies have scaling contracts, first round picks at least.
So when Kuminga gets to year 4 and 5, then that increases, and then then they have his rights for the next contract. So that that's why winning now was important, or winning last year was important, because those contracts were not out of control. At some point in the next 2 years, Kuminga's contract is probably going to be a concern, because and that's what Jordan Poole was this year, right?
Yeah, I think if they keep this pick, it's going to be a guy who they think can help right now. I think we're going to do all these Bry fits, and I think they're going to trade the pick. But yeah, I think
can they trade it though?
Ooh,
because the current rule,
then make a selection and then trade it.
That's
think probably a way to get around it.
I think you have to draft somebody.
Yeah, draft someone.
Draft the player, and then you can trade him.
Yeah,
but you cannot trade the pick.
I think
because they're trading next year's pick. If it is
the Stepien rule, whatever it's called, can't trade back-to-back picks.
Yeah,
you can't not have 2 picks in 2 years, something like that. But no, I think that's the argument. I think what's most likely going to happen is that, let's say like a GG Jackson somehow falls and a team. I mean, I think they're going to probably go best player available and draft it, because that has the highest upside for a trade, a high ceiling pick. That pick has value. The guy who they draft has value. That's what I think will probably happen. But in the case that it doesn't, I think Chris Murray is potentially the pick here. Just all my points is that he's ready to help now, and I just don't think Twins can be that different in talent gap. And if the Warriors had Keegan Murray right now, they'd be in the finals probably.
What is his position on the Warriors?
So yeah, I was trying to think of whose spot he's taking, and I think that there's a chance like that he takes he gets like some of what DiVincenzo's minutes were, some of what DiVincenzo and GP2's minutes were, because like obviously like if Kuminga stays on this team, like I don't think you can afford to have Chris Murray take his minutes, or else he's not on the team, right? Like you need, his main thing is like, let me play. So I mean, if we just talk about the guys who have a guaranteed roster spot for next season, it's the starting lineup: Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, Kevon Looney, Jordan Poole. If we're just going on who has a for sure spot for next year, anyone could get traded, but Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, GP2, Jonathan Kuminga, Ryan Rollins, and PBJ. Is that 10 guys?
It's 11, I think.
Yeah. So,
and they still don't have a backup center.
Yeah, I think he's got a.
So, but okay. So, what lineup possibility would you see him as a fit? Is he playing?
I think he could play with Steph.
Is he playing the power forward next to Draymond's center?
Yeah, I think there's a chance he could. I think that could be a fun small ball lineup. Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Chris Murray, Draymond. That sounds weird to say.
Yeah, because he's 6'8",
Yeah.
220. He didn't rebound terrifically well, but he averaged 8 rebounds last year.
That's pretty good. He's not the center. He's not the
Yeah.
power forward on his Iowa team.
He actually blocked. He had 1.2 blocks, which is his high, upwards of 0.9 the year before. He actually shot the 3 ball much better the year before in less minutes and less
It's
shots.
because I believe it's because the year before he had a way less of a role. He didn't have to do as much on-ball creation. He could just sit in a corner and shoot wide open threes. I think that's the attraction for me with this with Chris Murray on the Warriors, is that he has the opportunity to sit in the corner wide open and shoot threes.
All right. So, is there any information on defensively how he is?
KOC thinks he's solid.
Really?
I think he's okay. I think he's probably a little worse than his brother, because I don't think his brother's all that great. I think his brother's just he's pretty average, maybe a little above average. I think Chris will probably be average.
So speaking of KOC, because we love to bring up KOC's mock draft, which is a really fun tool if you're interested in this stuff. If you just search for the Ringer mock draft
Or the Ringer draft guide.
It's not even called the draft guide.
Are you looking at the mock draft? Because I look at I use the draft guide.
Oh, you use the draft. Yeah, because he puts them in order of what he thinks they're going to do, and then he puts them in order of who the best players are. Okay, so if you look at KOC's big board, he's got Keegan Murray at pick number 27. So that's much lower than where the Warriors draft. He says the positives are he's got a good feel for the game. He's intelligent. He's a catch and shoot. So 3-and-D, kind of like what you were saying. You're comfortable with him open in the corner. On-ball defense and off-ball defense. His minuses is the age, but that's not necessarily a problem for the Warriors.
It's not a minus for the Warriors.
A pro for the Warriors. And he lacks a dynamic handle off the dribble. Good first step, doesn't have great speed or shake and bake move. So those are his minuses according to KOC.
Yeah, trade down in front of the Kings. You'll get him.
What if the Kings draft the Twins?
That's what every mock draft has him going to. Is
really?
The Kings. Yeah.
All right, so we'll do this. The draft is the 22nd, I believe. So a few weeks away, but we'll do one player a show until we get to the draft. And then is the draft on a Thursday or a Wednesday this year? Do you know?
I have no clue. I don't even know what it is. I'm looking right now.
Thursday. So maybe we'll come back Thursday night if we can and do like a post-draft show, because, last year the draft was not as important because they had just won the championship, and not saying it's super important this year, but I think there's going to be more intrigue for who the Warriors take, because it'll show people who they believe are players who can fit, who can play, because they obviously have not drafted those guys.
Yeah. Like, I think if they draft Chris Murray, they keep the pick.
Yeah.
Because he's just not the highest ceiling guy in that spot. Like, he's kind of I don't know. He's just like an older player, a high floor guy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That is it. Our first off-season pod. We'll be back next week. I'm sure there will be news coming out next week. Who knows? Maybe there will even be a decision on some of these players and Bob Myers himself. But all right, we'll be back next week. For Bri, I am Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.